you to those of you who have signed in, and thank you also to those of you who will be watching this video at home later on. So Beth, may I ask for you to introduce yourself and share with us the mission and overview of ECS?
Yeah, well, thank you, Christina. It's just a great opportunity to be here. I love these Zoom town halls. I don't have to rush to get someplace, but someday we'll all be able to meet in person. So I appreciate it. I'm Beth Stokes, the Executive Director. I've had the joy and honor of representing ECS for a little over three years now. Prior to coming to ECS, I was actually working in Los Angeles with the Corporation for Supportive Housing, and in that role was representing the Western United States, so doing a lot of systems level work around rehousing folks. So very focused on supportive housing and building supportive housing, very focused on policy and ways to generate more revenue in communities, states to build supportive housing. But also looking at going upstream, which is a big part of some of the work I'm bringing to ECS, is really trying to kind of work to rehouse folks that have been historically marginalized and impacted by systemic racism. And that, you know, is something that has been a part of the work from the very beginning, right? Folks are now kind of giving it a name, you know, in a sense, but it's always been about issues of poverty, generational poverty, systemic racism, and many other things that are barriers for people to catch up economically in our society. So, you know, I bring a lens to this effort to end homelessness in San Francisco from a deep belief that housing is a solution. And that was the work I was doing with the Corporation of Supportive Housing. I also worked with the City and County of Los Angeles, and that was a great opportunity, a very exciting job. I was able to really kind of affect some of the rapid rehousing initiatives for all populations, youth, families, and single adults. You see, Los Angeles has, you know, obviously folks know, one of the largest populations of those that are unhoused in the country. It's certainly a big problem, but had the opportunity to work with them. I also I'll say I work with families. I, you know, spent 18 years in San Francisco prior to leaving for Los Angeles. And I worked with families, you know, at Hamilton Family Center for over a decade and really enjoyed that opportunity. ECS has a small footprint in families, working with families right now that are chronically homeless, unhoused in our supportive housing portfolio. It's a little bit about my background. The vision for ECS moving forward is really a focused vision on solutions to ending homelessness. And that's a multitude of different interventions related to rehousing folks. Housing is a solution to ending homelessness. We believe that housing is wellness, and also that for folks that are able to and want to engage in employment activities, that being able to work is wellness. You know, it's having that kind of perspective that, you know, people that are unhoused want to work. If you ask them, a majority of the population will say yes. And I think that folks don't realize that, but I know that we do as an organization, and it's something that I've brought into center of the focus of this organization, along with a focus on housing upon coming here. We still have a lot of work to do. You know, the Chef's Kitchen is a big part of that effort, which Malia will talk more about. You know, we're also doing a lot of rapid rehousing work. So that is more of a short-term subsidy. I won't get into the technicalities of that, but that's really an effort to work with people and integrate employment opportunities for folks that will have the opportunity, with a little bit of time, to have a short-term kind of rental subsidy and be able to economically stabilize. ECS is also very focused on a big issue in this community and across the country, and that's with folks that are aging, who are unhoused, and those that are aging in place. So we're very focused on our Healthy Aging platform. We know that it's a growing population in San Francisco, and we're really looking at innovative ways to be able to provide the type of housing and or interim housing that meets the needs of that population in a comprehensive, multifaceted way. And that's really focused on evidence and the science of what we know is happening for folks that are aging. We're also expanding as well in our behavioral health work, and crossing the bridge over to crosswalking our work into the reentry population. It's a new focus for ECS. We believe that folks coming out of prison and jail in this community and across the country have been marginalized, have been impacted by systemic racism. And we're really trying very hard to open doors around permanent housing so that the population that are exiting, as soon as they walk out of prison or jail, that we'll have housing opportunities for them. So that's a little bit about what we're doing. It's exciting work, and there's just a lot of work to do before us. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Beth. And Malia, may I ask for you to introduce yourself and share an overview of the programs that you work with at ECS?
Sure. My name is Malia Chavez, and I am the Deputy Director of Programs at ECS. I have been here for about 4 months. And previously, I worked in the family emergency service response world at the Homeless Prenatal Program as the deputy director there. And as Beth just mentioned, the housing is a huge part of the work. But in addition to housing alone, we know, isn't always enough. And so being able to provide that workforce support and opportunity for people to enter the training and or workplace directly is what we're really focused on now. And so part of the portfolio of services that I oversee and am working on are the workforce programs, as well as healthy aging, which Beth just referred to. And we're really focused on that, as well as the housing expansion right now that we're going through, because we all know that there's an ever growing and bigger need for housing, those that are experiencing homelessness.
Thank you, Malia. So our next steps are going to be that I'll be asking questions to Beth and to Malia, and they will be sharing some of the strategic vision and the direction of ECS. And everyone who's participating, please do not hesitate to send your questions via the chat to me, Christina, or to Lindsay, and we will also include them at the end with the Q&A. So Beth, let's start with you, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So ECS is, for the last 35 years, ECS has been one of the most comprehensive service providers to people experiencing homelessness and experiencing extreme poverty in our city of San Francisco. And I'm hoping that you can share with us how ECS has worked to expand our portfolio of supportive housing since you started as executive director 3 years ago. And can you tell us what impact this housing has on people in our city who are experiencing chronic homelessness?
Yeah, our efforts over the past 3 years have really been to kind of expand. Part of our strategic vision is expanding our footprint and ensuring that, one, we're working toward, identifying capital opportunities to both develop more supportive housing for those that are chronically homeless. We're really looking to ensure that there's enough, for a population that's still on the street, that's unhoused and experiencing chronic homelessness. And that's when I say chronic homelessness, just for folks that don't really understand what that definition is, it's folks that have really significant barriers to getting into housing, and often will have barriers that look like folks that have been suffering from long-term behavioral health issues, physical health issues, in different stages of recovery or not, around substance use. So we've been really focused on that population as it relates to supportive housing. And for folks that don't understand what supportive housing is or may not be familiar with it, supportive housing has kind of three legs to the stool, right? So it's deeply subsidized ELI housing, which is extremely low income housing. So folks are going to pay 30% or less for their rent every month. They have a lease in their name. It's not a program. Folks have the legal right to be in that unit, and until they don't want to be in the unit, so they can live out the rest of their lives in the supportive housing unit. And it also comes with voluntary services, and so it's a type of program that often can be a more expensive intervention than other interventions because it requires capital, operating subsidy, and services. And we've had the opportunity to really partner with fantastic partners in San Francisco, including Mercy Housing, we have partnered with the city of San Francisco, their homelessness and supportive housing department, to expand our portfolio rather quickly through acquisition of the Project Home Key initiative that started at the state of California. So as we're focused on supportive housing, we're also really looking at opportunities and stepping forward when those come. And you know, Project Home Key was something that we had to react to. ECS's board of directors, our partners, and our staff to say, yes, we believe that, you know, bringing these over 300 units of supportive housing into the field for the chronically homelessness in a very short period of time, less than a year, I would say, you know, less than 6 months, right? And if you look at some of the other projects that ECS works on, which is the development of supportive housing, that can take up to 5 years. We're really hoping to lessen that time frame with modular housing to 3 to 4 years, but it does take longer. So with Home Key, it was an effort to, one, acquire property for the organization in relation to expanding supportive housing and housing more people, the rehousing effort post the health pandemic, but it's also about preservation. So it's about ensuring that the folks that already lived in one of those buildings, the Granada Hotel, are able to stay in their housing. And we've been working really hard on creating more affordability in terms of rents for those that are there, because preservation and anti-displacement is a really important part of the work in terms of forward thinking around, you know, how communities are going to prevent people from becoming homeless in the first place, which is a huge part of the work. So, you know, our effort has been a real focus on that expansion of supportive housing. ECS will be expanding our number of units from about 1,200 now to about 2,200 in the next 4 months. And that's, again, our focus is on housing as being, you know, the solution to ending homelessness, and supportive housing is absolutely a proven effective intervention for those that are chronically homeless and have, you know, have extreme vulnerabilities into being able to obtain housing and sustain housing long term.
Great, thank you very much.
Sure.
And I also know that at ECS, one of our core beliefs is that housing is healthcare, and this work really does participate in that. If I can shift gears slightly, Malia, you mentioned workforce development, and so I was hoping we could discuss. So a commonly perpetuated myth about unhoused individuals is that people are not interested in working, and we know that from our past San Francisco homeless point-in-time count that was conducted in 2019, 11% of people who are experiencing homelessness presently are also employed, according to the point-in-time count. And so that means of the 89% of folks who are not employed at this time, the report indicates that only 9% of people responded that they didn't want to work, which means that the vast majority of people are interested in employment opportunities. And we know that income through employment brings long-term economic stability, which leads to long-term housing stability. So the San Francisco point-in-time count also indicates that 26% of people that they surveyed reported that job loss was their primary cause of homelessness. So Malia, I'm hoping that you can speak to ECS's workforce development work, and particularly the importance of finding a career, of our workforce development work, preparing participants for a career that is a living wage career, and a career that in employment training that brings workers from the entry-level positions and beyond, so that the wages can cover the expenses of living in our quite expensive city.
Absolutely. Our chefs program is in fact designed for that very purpose. You know, our goal in the model itself is to train people and have them have the on-the-job experience as soon as possible. So as soon as they engage in the training, they're learning the very practical skill of being in the kitchen, learning all of the essential skills, and already sort of preparing for their job interviews in the future, and being able to be placed within a restaurant or in a commercial kitchen. And I think one of the really bright spots that we actually just got an update on for the employment eligibility sort of and state of the union right now in San Francisco is that while we have lost a tremendous number of restaurant workers, so everything from dishwashers to line cooks to head chefs, people have closed their small businesses and closed restaurants because of the outflow of people leaving from the professional sector and tech sector. What wasn't anticipated, I think, is that now during this reopening, those that were in those roles and, you know, at all levels of from minimum wage on, they left the city because they couldn't afford to wait a year for the reopening. And so what we're seeing now is that we are actually in a great position where restaurants are contacting us to see if we have candidates that are ready to be placed. So really the restaurant industry is still a viable option for people. And we have a number of success stories where people who have gone through the chef's program started, you know, at one phase of the kitchen process and then ended up moving up through the ranks fairly quickly. Within 3 months, people can see a pathway for themselves if they're reliable and they're doing a good job. So we have a number of examples of that. And so there's a really great sense of optimism right now around the training program, as well as these other opportunities that we are exploring on our social enterprise side and with the meal preparations that we're currently providing for the emergency hotels and the interests that exist for providing meals and food security for seniors and adults living with disabilities. So I don't know if that fully answers your question, but if you have other details that you'd like, I'm happy to help and fill them in. But I just think that, yes, our program is designed to really meet the needs of participants and then to help them get set on a path for a real sustainable and livable wage.
Thank you. Yes, I am. One of the things that I think is most exciting about ECS right now is 1064 Mission Street, which Beth mentioned, and that is currently under development with, in partnership with our partners, Mercy Housing. And on the ground floor of 1064 Mission Street will be a kitchen dedicated for the chef's program and for our vocational culinary training program. And this is going to be a 6,000 square foot state-of-the-art commercial kitchen that is on the ground floor of Mission Street with floor to ceiling windows so that passersby, pedestrians in the neighborhood can look right into the kitchen and see the vocational training and food preparation that is happening right in that space, which I think is extremely exciting. And in this space, we'll also have classroom space and freezers, and this space will be a really significant impact on the chef's program. And so, Malia, I was hoping you could tell us a little bit more about what you see as the future for the chef's program, understanding that we are still rolling out the model of the social enterprise for the opening of the chef's kitchen in spring 2022.
Yes, there's so much excitement about having a large central kitchen like 1064. And there's so many benefits, I think, that we'll see pretty quickly, immediately, once we open. Having that large space and the capacity to actually scale our program, as well as meet this increasing need for, on the side that we have currently happening, which is the meal preparations for folks that are either, again, adults with disabilities, seniors, those that are in shelter, and those that are currently in temporary housing situations. So there's an ever-growing need for that support, and ECS is in a very prime position to continue to grow that. With this large kitchen, it will help us not only have greater space to take on larger contracts, but it will also help us to centralize a lot of the cost and the efficiencies around having one kitchen that can serve many. And to your point around the wonderful layout and the state-of-the-art design for the kitchen space, it's amazing. The design with even things like having the two-way mirror and monitors and the ability to see what the chefs are doing at every step of the stage to preparation makes it that much easier to be able to reach everyone who's in a room instead of having one or two students having to stand side by a chef, and also allow us to make any sort of modification as we roll out during this unknown time of COVID, and making sure that there's still social distancing and all of the safety requirements in the kitchen, which our staff has really been mindful about and been able to do very successfully.
Thank you. So ECS is currently undergoing a capital campaign in order to fund this kitchen. The capital campaign, the build out of the chef's kitchen will cost will involve $2.6 million of philanthropic support. And I'm grateful for the folks who are on this town hall who are capital campaign donors. Thank you very much for calling in and participating. We truly appreciate your support of the campaign and your support of the future of the chef's program and the future of our chef's social enterprise. Beth, I know that this program is dear to you, and within the first year of you being executive director of ECS, we launched this capital campaign for the chef's program. And so I was hoping that you could share with us what is so special about this program to you.
Yeah, I mean, I came to ECS for the workforce component. And it's a little secret, you know, ECS has, you know, I'm all about housing, but the elephant in the room for all of us who've worked, you know, to create affordable housing and preserve housing and prevent displacement and rehouse folks. The elephant in the room has always been how do we successfully work with folks that are experiencing homelessness to be able to fast track into employment. With livable wages, and that's the goal. And ECS had a platform for workforce development and a fledgling kind of social enterprise. And so it's what drove me to the organization because I really wanted to see what was possible, you know, from this organization, from this community, in order to create pathways into employment, and employment that provides people with the earn and learn model so that they're, you know, earning a wage while they're learning. And there's just a multitude of different interventions and evidence-based interventions, including interventions related to behavioral health and being able to work with people who have significant barriers to employment with behavioral health, but have been able to, you know, successfully, you know, work and maintain, you know, their employment, who have experienced homelessness. And it's just, you know, I think I've heard professionally in so many different rooms and from so many folks that, you know, folks don't want to work. And it's just it's such a big challenge that, you know, it's like, you know, folks don't want to step into it. And I think for the organization, it's taken a big lift to restructure, you know, our workforce development program. To really identify and understand what a social enterprise is, and how do we move into that space in a very deliberate way as an organization. And our Chef's Kitchen at 1064 will enable us to do that with the expansion of that square footage. You know, the first year I was here with 1064, we were awarded that project, and it was an immediate identification of here's our opportunity with the Chef's Kitchen to really kind of make an effort, make it possible to do a real kind of true version of a social enterprise because of space issues, with, you know, the opportunity to have workforce development trainings and classroom teachings, you know, in the same space. And so, you know, we have multiple kitchens at ECS in different buildings that are not commercial kitchens and not teaching kitchens. And so we've been able to make do by, you know, piecing things together in a very determined way. Much credit to ECS and its board as an organization for that effort. But this was a real opportunity for us to kind of like really kind of grow into the space and grow into workforce. And I just think that anytime someone wants to work, that they should be, you know, given that opportunity, and that we as an organization internally and externally need to be working toward, you know, being able to help people to be employed with a wage that's a livable wage, and to help people upskill both internally and externally as an organization, and really commit to people's employment. Because for so many that don't qualify for supportive housing in terms of the eligibility for that, which is only about, generally going to be 25 to 30% of the population of those experiencing homelessness are going to be able to, qualify for that type of supportive housing, that we've been focused on. But with the rapid rehousing, folks are going to need employment, and that's the bulk of the population that we're working with, right? Mm-hmm. And so we've got to figure it out. And so I've never been one to shy away from difficult problems and difficult challenges. It's been before this nation for a very, very long time in terms of poverty. And so ECS, I think, has been bold. Our board has been bold. Our staff is bold, and very determined to say, I think we're going to make a great effort, a huge effort, to figure out how we can create clear pathways into employment at ECS for folks who are experiencing homelessness. So it's a passion, and it's something that I've learned a lot about myself since I've been here. There's great thought partners that we have, and great staff that we're bringing into the organization, Malia being one of them, who really have a background and a passion for workforce development. So, I think we're moving.
And if I can say, one of the things that I think is so extraordinary about the Chefs program is that the staff develops really personal relationships with our participants. And so the curriculum has evolved over time to not only include vocational training, practical kitchen skills, large batch cooking skills, sanitation, the basics of the kitchen, but also really intentional job readiness training, and really addressing the very specific needs of homeless job seekers. And I think that is smart and strategic, and allows for folks to succeed really in the long run in careers versus just getting this entry-level position in a kitchen. And although I do not get to ever cook in the kitchen, though we've been invited to learn how to cut open a turkey and fillet a fish by our chef staff, I will say that I've been, grateful, even as development staff, to develop relationships with the students, and have developed a friendship with a student named James, who is a longtime was a participant of the Chefs program and is now just a friend to the organization, and has also benefited from. He has also participated in other ECS programs using chefs as the entry point, and so. Through ECS was also a rapid rehousing participant, has worked with the chef's team to be able to advance at work, and is now the supervisor of the kitchen where he works, and is now one of our primary cheerleaders of the program and recruiters of other students. And I just think that there's so much joy to this. And so I've been really grateful for this program and my time as staff as well. Malia, is there anything that you would like to share about the program that inspires you?
Yeah, you touched a little on it already around accessing other services throughout ECS. So the mental health and behavioral health support, whether it's, then tying programs over into our computer and technology lab, and really being able to expand skills and access different training programs. I think all of those are just really wonderful opportunities that, like you said, once the door has been opened and people learn about chefs and meet the staff and understand that they have a real support system that's very holistic, they're more willing and likely to engage in many other services. And then again, really sort of help us with this promotion and cycle of sharing the news, because they then go on to become champions for the work, as inspiring others to feel like they too can someday walk in the same shoes, or travel the same trajectory. And your example, Christina, is exactly what I was thinking about earlier when I was thinking about, you can start off through chefs, you can get into a kitchen, and then very quickly make your way into a supervisory role, or operate your own kitchen, or in some cases start your own business. And it is a pathway for people, and that is just so inspiring. So yeah, I just second everything that Beth and Christina have said about the innovation as well as the need for the program.
And it's also fun running into our graduates around town. Specifically, I was in the Bayview, this is months and months ago, but buying sweets with my kids, and went to a store that is owned by a chef's graduate and who makes some killer sweet potato pies. Yvonne Southern Sweets is the pitch. Anyway, Lindsay, we have promised time to our participants for a Q&A portion so that they can directly ask questions to Beth and to Malia and myself if they have any for me. I know that folks have been dropping questions into the chat function. Please continue to do so to either to Lindsay or myself. But Lindsay, I will pass this over to you.
All right, so you can hear me? Good. So first question is, who will actually be qualified to enter the chef's program?
Anyone who expresses an interest and commitment to showing up for the program. We have people who come in through all different doors, if you will, through ECS as well as in the community and the surrounding community. And I think there was also a question just around if there are any guidelines or requirements, and we have very low, if not no barriers for entry. The whole point, and one of the reasons that this program is so unique, is that we really are trying to meet people where they are. And as long as people are committed to working through whatever challenges they may be facing, that's where the partnership and the trust and relationship building with our behavioral health team and any of the access and being able to get them connected with any sort of health services, all of that is part of the case management component that goes into supporting each chef student. So there are very limited, I think, requirements, which is just, no active use while you're in the workplace. And as long as you are able to show up to work and comply with all safety guidelines and keeping a safe work environment, then we work with each individual in order to make sure that they can successfully attend the trainings as well as complete the program. I hope that
I'm glad you said that, Malia. Another question came in that's right along the lines. So it's that you've mentioned substance abuse, and part of our services, sobriety housing. And this participant has said she's heard that it can take up to 3 years for someone living in sobriety to actually get to the point where they're able to completely ingrain the lifestyle without drugs or alcohol. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I really do think it depends on the individual and their own motivation, because for some, different factors come into play. But yes, on average, I mean, it is very challenging for somebody who is actively, trying to remain sober or, making that shift in their life to try to engage in a whole new skill set or in a different thing that may be triggering or cause an additional amount of stress. But again, that's where we sort of are working to meet each individual where they are. And because everybody sort of is in a different place depending on their situation, we really want to give everyone an opportunity to try. And so, I am not a clinician, and so I can't really speak to sort of the studies and information that are out there. I can say that for other very low barrier, or what I consider to be, very community and unhoused individual centric programs, such as community health worker programs and things of that nature, really do focus on, as long as people have been on that path for about 3 months to a year, that's a really good indication that they are in a ready place to be able to take on new challenges like that. And so that's usually when you do hear about some of the limitations or fears, it's usually within that first year.
Got it. Thank you. Another question, totally switching gears. What do you believe to be the most effective action you're seeing from the city and government on homelessness?
Yeah,
I mean, sorry,
yeah,
sorry, the follow-up.
Yeah, Malia, please jump in after me if that's okay. The most effective action, as of recently, I would say, and historically, honestly, is that I've worked all over the Western United States, so I do have that perspective, and that I can say, and in Los Angeles, which has just changed over the last 7 to 8 years in terms of their commitment to providing funding for long-term operating subsidies for folks that are chronically homeless. Yet San Francisco has been doing it since the first supportive housing that was built by ECS across the street, you know, in Canning Kip. San Francisco in the early 90s was one of the first cities to begin investing their general fund dollars into deeply subsidized housing for those that were unhoused, and now chronically homeless is the big focus over the past decade. And so I would say that, you know, sometimes I understand in the community, you don't see it or you don't feel it. But San Francisco has been one of the biggest investors in operating subsidies and building supportive housing or master leasing supportive housing for the folks that are most vulnerable in the community. Do we have enough? No. Do we have enough affordable housing? No. Is San Francisco going to be able to solve the affordable housing situation on their own? No. Right? The federal government has not invested as deeply as they need to in affordability since the 1970s, right? And so it's not just a San Francisco problem, it is a national problem around housing affordability. And I know there was recently $2.4 billion passed around affordable housing with the Biden administration. And so we're very hopeful the community of San Francisco passed Prop C, which is going to enable the community to also bring on more affordability, more affordable housing and supportive housing into the community. These are really positive steps moving forward, because folks will think, well, we keep putting money in and we're not seeing a solution. You know, the reason is we haven't really focused and invested in the solution for a very long time, both as a nation, as a state, and as a city. And even though San Francisco does invest more than most per person, per capita, it's still that the issue is that we still need to continue to focus on not just supportive housing, because we will get to a point, and I believe this, where we will be able to say we have enough supportive housing units, but we'll only have enough supportive housing units if we prevent people from becoming homeless in the first place, right? And so to do that, we really also need to kind of be looking at the prevention of folks that are marginally housed, right, in you know, housing that is mildly affordable or affordable, and ensure that that population of folks, which is many in San Francisco, don't ever lose their housing, right? Because once somebody falls into homelessness, there's a lot of issues around eligibility to get supportive housing. You can have somebody who's in their 70s with multiple issues around health, behavioral health, who won't be able to qualify for supportive housing in the first 12 months of their homelessness, right? Because that's one of the eligibility criteria that, you know, hopefully at some point we can all agree to change. Yet we really have to kind of look at anti-displacement efforts. We really have to look at preservation of housing, and we have to look at, you know, further subsidizing affordable housing for those that don't have an income to even continue to, you know, live in the housing that they have. We have to maintain housing, and that's going to also come at a cost. So folks would say, oh, well, you know, they're already in affordable housing. Yeah, but they're spending about 85% of whatever income they have, which is usually going to be SSI, on their rent, right? So nothing can go wrong for these folks who are already living in poverty. And so, and many of them are aging. Nothing can go wrong. And we all know in life, things go wrong, right? Particularly economically, and they're just not able to recover, and they fall into homelessness. And so we really have to we have to work on both sides of the problem. I think San Francisco has invested deeply in supportive housing and will continue to, but it is an issue that is a regional issue, and it's an issue that the federal government needs to step into, and it's an issue that the state needs to, you know, I know they came up with a recent plan and need to invest in as well. That was a long answer. Sorry about that.
That was very well said. Don't
Leah,
apologize.
do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think Beth hit all of the points, and Yeah, I would just reinforce the fact that San Francisco has been in this as trying to find a creative solution for some time now. And a lot of other cities look to us as a model. So yes, I agree. There's still a lot of work to be done, but there's a lot of will here to try to solve the solution or come up with a solution.
Okay, thank you. Another question, Beth, directed at you is, can you share any of your 12 to 18 month targets that you set for the organization in terms of homeless served, any other measurable increments that you deem as relevant in measuring success?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I want to acknowledge the organization, the community, and the country has just gone through a health pandemic, and how has that kind of impacted the organization and toward our strategic goals and our lens around our impact and what we're focused on. ECS, amazingly so, you know, we have kept it moving on the workforce front with Malia's, you know, fantastic efforts and work around staying focused on that, knowing that, you know, even though restaurants have been closed for pretty much a year, we know that they'll, you know, rebound, but that's not just the focus of the work moving forward. It's really around kind of, you know, large meal production, which we see as kind of where our next, you know, I would say strategic effort lies in terms of chefs. And so, you know, we've always been able to kind of like through the pandemic, which was like everyone else, you know, in society, it was a big effort, a big lift for this organization. We committed to 8 shelter-in-place project room key sites, right? So ECS outside of our congregate shelter, the sanctuary, has been housing nearly 1,000 individuals since the start of the pandemic. So ECS's goals over the next 12 to 18 months is to ensure, you know, through policy, through advocacy, that all of those folks that are in ECS's housing, as well as in all of the shelter-in-place housing sites, are going to be able to be rehoused. So we work every day in meetings with the city. We advocate for folks to ensure, you know, for the city and you know, with all of our partners to ensure that folks are actually going to be rehoused and not housed, you know, or not, you know, walking off of a cliff into homelessness again. What we saw with the shelter-in-place hotels, which was really remarkable, is that there was resources that quickly were mobilized to be able to house over 2,300 people that were unhoused and vulnerable to the COVID-19. And so it showed us a lot, you know, and most folks know, well, that's not sustainable. You know, you can't just rent hotels rooms, you know, at that level, you know, year after year. And I do think that what we're trying to do now is to say that, you know, that model is a good model. There's no question about it that folks do much better in terms of their health and wellness, and just in terms of the humanity of what we're offering, to be able to offer people the opportunity to be in their own room, right? And be able to close the door and have a bathroom that, you know, isn't like a, you know, a congregate bathroom. So I just think the dignity of that those settings, you know, if you hear people's stories who moved into those shelter-in-place hotels, you know, they're just, you know, they just warm your heart. You know that that's the solution. Yet for so many, what we're really looking at is ensuring that they have an opportunity to go into permanent housing in a different way outside of the hotel. And that could look like, you know, being able to do short-term subsidies in terms of market rate housing, or supportive housing, or scattered site supportive housing is a new effort called the Flex Fund in San Francisco that ECS is a part of. We'll also be, you know, integrating workforce into this effort. Some folks might get a 6-month subsidy, and that's all that they may need. That's not going to be the majority of the population, but that's also something that we're offering. So, but to answer the question, with over 900 units of supportive housing, ECS's goal is to ensure that 900 of those folks are, you know, don't land on the street in the next 9-10 months. That's, you know, a significant goal before us. After that, ECS is really looking at, we have acquired 2 properties, home key properties. And so we're really looking to ensure that those properties are able to kind of roll out, and we're able to do seismic rehab and the rehab that needs to happen on those properties. We're trying to ensure that the current residents, a goal that were in the property to begin with, are able to stabilize there and keep their housing. And we also are really kind of looking at where new opportunities and to be positioned for new supportive housing opportunities that come before us to be able to support the community and move into that space. So our footprint, is really kind of trying to add units to supportive housing, and every year it could look anywhere from 200 to 300 units annually.
It's impressive. It's impressive. And there was a question specifically about the spectrum of housing participants and where the program, with the program, where they go afterwards, which I believe you addressed. Is there anything else you want to add beyond what you just said in the last 2 minutes in particular?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think one of the opportunities that the community is really kind of focused on now is flex funding. It's this flex pool, flex funding, which is really scattered site, market rate, or if we can find affordable units, housing for folks that meet the definition of chronically homeless. So those folks will be in deeply subsidized, apartments in the community, and have that subsidy guaranteed, like supportive housing for 15 years and beyond. So that's a big shift. That's a big deal. So that means, ECS, is part of that initiative with the city and other partners. ECS is partnering with multitude of other partners in this effort around this support service work that's going to be done, the case management work, because it is supportive housing. And, in a week, we'll have access to those subsidy slots, or 2 weeks or even less, so that we are not waiting for a building to be built. We are able to move people into long-term sustainable supportive housing now, right? And so that effort is underway, and I think it's an important effort, right? I think it's needed and necessary. So we're not looking at having to put so much money into capital, right? It is putting time and resources and effort into partnerships with landlords and homeowner, apartment owners, because we have to sustain that relationship for a long period of time. And that takes a lot of work. It takes a shift in your thinking, right, as an organization, on how you approach those relationships, because they're very, very important. Yet, we also want to make sure that you're providing services in a geographical kind of distance that's meaningful for that person, so that they have what they need and can successfully stabilize and integrate in that housing. So I would say that's a really important, part of the work. And I will also say, San Francisco really for the first time has invested in a meaningful way in rapid rehousing for single adults. I think more needs to be done and more investment needs to happen. Because like I said, the bulk of the population that is going to need some housing intervention is not the chronically homeless, right? It's the folks that are going to have a shorter term subsidy. And we need more of those. ECS was operating one of maybe 2 rapid rehousing projects, one for reentry for people coming out of prison. And that was an initiative with adult probation and Tipping Point called Step Up to Freedom. And it's doing very well. Malia is overseeing that program. I can talk to it if anybody has questions. And it's our effort and focus around folks, returning home from prison. And then we had another 40 slots. So in San Francisco, for our portfolio, we only had 70 slots approximately for folks from rapid rehousing, when it's the bulk of the single adult population. So that investment needs to continue. And I think it needs to continue in a much more comprehensive and deeper way for a longer period of time. I'm not saying 15 years, but I'm definitely saying anywhere from 3 to 5 years to enable people to stabilize so that they don't return to homelessness, because that's everybody's goal.
Right. Okay. Well, it's a complex challenge, and you are certainly on the vanguard of the solutions. And we've seen it through the testament of the work at ECS. And, it's no doubt compelling to just hear your thoughts, Beth, and how you see the whole system and strategies to approach the challenges that are complex. So I want to thank you for that. And as we're looking to wrap up, is there anything that you'd invite for the guests to consider as we think about next steps and how they might be engaged?
Yeah, I mean, I would love for all of the participants, I can't see you, and that's unfortunate, but you can see us, to invite you to participate, in this effort to really truly end homelessness in this community, because I think it's possible, or I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you every day I get up believing it's possible. But there's a lot of work to be done, and I invite you all to participate in that effort. And the Chef's Kitchen is a big part of that effort. That's a big part of our commitment to employment, our commitment to dignity, our commitment to believing that people, through their own, internal, motivations and ambitions or drive, are able to, move themselves out of the situation that they're in and really move beyond this, kind of how, this qualifier as being homeless, right? It's really, for many people, they feel that stigmatization, and for many people, we're just trying to say that it's a temporary, non-permanent situation, and we want to be able to, we want to be able to close the window for folks when they become homeless, right? When they're experiencing this situation, this very traumatic situation of being homeless, right? We want to close the window quickly, right? To be able to connect with someone very quickly. There's an urgency to it, and get them off the street and get them into, if it's workforce development, if it's training, if it's a job, ECS is expanding our partnerships. We'll have alternate pathways into employment, and an earn and learn model, So for some, it's going to be the Chef's Kitchen, and for others, it may not. And I know we're running out of time. So what I'm inviting you to do is really participate in the Chef's Kitchen, because it's something we deeply believe in as an organization, as a board of directors. It's where our heart is. And it is the beating heart of the organization, right? So I just invite you to kind of take that leap of faith with us and breathe, from that heart, right? Where we're really committed to this. And to talk to Christina when she reaches out to you about this project. It's an exciting project, and I will also say it is going to be embedded in the largest effort around supportive housing in the community, and one that will have also, finally, thank you, have it will be integrating healthcare into that building. Tom Waddell, the Department of Public Health, is moving into that building along with us. And so it's an exciting opportunity. It's an exciting building. It'll be a flagship supportive housing model with the Chef's Kitchen right at the very front of it. So we invite you to participate in this really, really exciting project with us.
Wonderful. Thank you for that call to action. Yeah, Christina.
Thank you. I just wanted to extend immense thanks to everyone who participated in the town hall today. This is our first town hall, and we will be doing more of them. So just thank you for coming. We will be sending out a recording to all of you who participated, in case you would like to watch this again with us. And I will be in touch personally. Thank you very much. We'll talk to you all soon.
Thanks everyone for your time. Really appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you.